This is Ty Trumbull from Acquira. If you go through our training, one phrase you'll see a lot is location agnostic. And what that means is basically the more places that you're willing to look to buy a business, the more likely it is that you'll find one that matches your unique investment thesis and is therefore a better fit for you. But of course, buying something in a different state or a different region of the country comes with its own host of problems and issues that you might have to navigate. It can include uprooting your family if you buy in a different state, or leaving friends and family behind as you work to grow the business. Whatever the case, one acquisition entrepreneur who has recently gone through a situation like this is Ken Lavertu. Him and his family, his wife and 3 kids, lived in South Carolina, where Ken created, it grew, and eventually sold his business. Eventually, he decided to acquire another business and bought a granite company in Florida. This meant having to move his family from South Carolina to Florida, where they didn't really know anybody, and Ken had to really dive into growing the business. We wanted to look at sort of the real world version of location agnostic and what it means for Ken and his family, what he learned through the process and whether he has any regrets. And secret answer, he doesn't. But in case you were curious about what it looks like from his perspective, here's our conversation.
So, Ken, in our training, we talk a lot about, being location agnostic to find a business, and you were specifically location agnostic and ended up buying a business in a different state, but that required, some life changes. I was wondering if you could sort of walk us through what happened after the close and then buying something in a different state.
Yeah, sure. So I think we weren't thinking about buying something out of state. Definitely, we're on the path of looking for a business in our backyard, more along the lines of like HVAC, plumbing, more of the recession resilient businesses that Acquira talks about. It's very difficult to find one where we were. And it's not that we didn't have a concentration of population, it just wasn't the right opportunity, and especially the right size business. And so I really wanted something around $1 million EBITDA plus. And I was going through, I think I told you this on another thing, how I found the business, but eventually we had to come to a decision on whether or not I was going to buy a business in Florida and what that meant for my family. And so I was expecting my wife to sort of be like, no, her family lives 5 minutes away, and all of her sisters, she has 3 other sisters that all live within like 10 minutes of each other with their husbands and their families. So there was definitely some roots. We had been in that area since we've been married. So we've had kids there. We got married there 15 years. So it was a really big ask. And I just slowly over time kind of thought we should at least start talking about it. Like, what does it look like? What if I did find a business in another state? Where would it be? What's too far? And so when we landed this business in Florida and started looking at it, I said, hey, this is a 6-hour drive from your family. Could we do this? Could we make this work and it'd be okay? And so it was, and it was like, well, how long are we going to be here? And that conversation sort of led to, well, how long is too long? Or what does this mean for our kids and schooling? My kids were in private school. My son is 9 years old, daughter is 4, and then we have a 2-year-old. And of course, right before we decided to move down here, we found out we were pregnant with our 4th. So it's been quite
Congratulations.
And it's an ongoing adventure, but we're still excited about it. We have a lot of hope for the future. It's very important for us to get plugged in, and so we're Christians, we're believers, so we want to get plugged into a church, and so we believe we found one, and that's really important to us because we literally don't know anyone here, like no one.
Right.
So it's literally coming in blind to a community. The closest relative is 3 hours away. Her grandmother does live in Florida. But we've only seen her one time since we've been here, and we've been really busy with the move.
So, you had to sell your house and buy a house, and it all seemed to happen really fast for you.
Yes.
How were you able to manage the emotions of buying a business and taking over a new business plus this big life change?
Yeah, I think so. I actually made a Gantt chart for us. for our family. So it was like, okay, here's what has to happen in the next 3 months. And then like, so Brittany had to do things. I had to do things. I didn't like follow it the whole way through, but I think it gave us a little bit of peace about, okay, if we just take this in bite-sized chunks, we'll be fine. Because it was
Hmm.
really overwhelming. It was, what do we do with our house? We were really attached to our house. Do we sell it? Do we not sell it? Do we sell it? Do we not sell it? What happens in a year or two or whatever if we come back, or we don't know. And so we ended up just doing short-term rental, like a 6 month lease with a family. And that's probably kind of how we want to do it from here on out, just like rent it out 3 or 4 months at a time or 6 months at a time, until we decide we're, might be ready to come back. So, but a lot of that's going to depend on how well and how mature the company gets while I'm here and at what pace.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, for us, it was like, let's leave the house furnished. Let's leave it. So we're very minimal moving. We did have like a truck come and pick up a pod and then deliver it to Florida. And then we used some of that stuff to furnish our house, but we ended up buying like all of our furniture from Wayfair.
Hmm.
So then, yeah, so I think the emotions of it was, we're going to be planning a lot of trips back. We already have been back. We've gone to the beach with best friends. We're going to see them in, next weekend as well. We're going to go up there for a while. My 40th birthday is coming up, so I'm going to be hang gliding with my best friend, hopefully. So yeah, we'll go tandem with it, and we'll have an instructor, obviously, and we're not like just doing it ourselves. But so I
Hmm.
think decompression is important, because I can get
Hmm.
really overwhelmed with what's happening here, and get really busy. And
Hmm.
so I need to be more strategic and more relationship focused for sure, with my family right now. We actually just had a heart-to-heart talk, my wife and I, um, just the other night, about how, what's the state of our marriage? How are we? I know she, she kind of feels a little bit alone right now. Okay, well, how do we make those connections then with church and then also with family back home? And so we're working through it. It's a challenge.
Hmm.
But overall, like, the kids are happy. My son is 9 years old, and there's literally 6 other 9-year-olds on the same street.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and we are like living a little dead end loop. And so like they just ride their bikes in circles, and it's totally safe. And there's like tons of kids, which is amazing. I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting like a retirement community. It's in like the World's Golf Village area. And
Hmm.
so like, but it's great. Lots of families in there. I was really happy about that. So
Yeah, that's great. And you mentioned trying to find community through the church. Uh, Has that been a struggle trying to like not ingratiate, but find a community?
yes, it actually has been. We realized that we're probably a little bit too particular about the nuances of what we're looking for in a church, and that's kind of made it hard. Also, the culture here is a little bit different. Like,
Mm.
it's we're not used to going to a church that's like more of a concert kind of a feel, or we usually participate a little bit more in the worship, and I don't know, it's just a different feel. But I think we found a group of people that some families that are in the same seasons of life. It's just a
Mm.
matter of, we went to the same church for like 13 years, and like we're just well connected, and it's small. This is a bigger church. And so
Mm.
it's like, wow, this takes work, like developing new relationships from scratch. Like, it's work. And there's a lot of vulnerability, a lot of like risk taking when you're talking about starting friendships from the beginning, and facing rejection. And it's been fine. Everyone's been kind, and it seems like a good church, but it's just extending yourselves. That's like a new exercise, so you got to work those
Yeah.
muscles again. But it's been okay.
Yeah, I always say it's hard to make friends later in life, right?
Yeah,
Like the older
yeah.
you get, the harder it is. Not that you're late in life, but
No, I think it's true. I mean, I turned 40 on Sunday, and it's feels like I'm kind of starting life over, so it feels a little bit weird, but it's fine. It's just different. It's a challenge. I like
yeah.
the challenge, actually. If there's a challenge, I love it, because it means things are getting mixed up, and I can get bored easily. So
Mhm.
it's been good for me. Yeah.
So speaking about the challenge, what advice would you give for other acquisition entrepreneurs, preparing to face the challenge of maybe moving their family or buying something in a different state?
Yeah, I would say get buy-in from your partner. your spouse, and talk to your kids a lot about it before you do it. We did that a lot, and I think it really helped. And even with all that buy-in, my wife was like 100% behind it. It doesn't mean she's not going, what did we do? Like what was happening? And with a glint of hope in there too, but still, it's still a challenge. So I can't imagine not having that same buy-in, with your partner, like not having that buy-in would be really, really, really tough because you're asking. I'm all about the adventure, especially with personality. Maybe the acquisition entrepreneur would be less like change oriented, and maybe the other spouse would be, but it's not that way in our marriage. And I just think knowing her and knowing your spouse like is really important, and taking that into consideration, doing a lot of listening and understanding, and I just think it's marriage 101, right? Like talking, communicating, making sure that they're behind it, and if they're not, maybe you should rethink it, or come up with a different plan. So, and I'm not saying we have it all figured out either. We're still working through like what's next, how long, how do we make these friendships all over again? So we're still in that right now too. But I think listening and understanding would go a long way.
Right. But no regrets as far as buying something.
No. And neither does she. I think it's just like, how do we do this challenge now? What does it look like? You can't expect to recreate 13-year friendships in 3 months. We haven't even been here 3 months yet. So it's like, we're just getting settled, And then our kids went from private school to homeschool. So that's a big change too. And then the baby's coming in on, in February. So that'll be even more kind of crazy, but
wow.
But yeah.
Wow. Well, congratulations again.
And, thank you. Yeah, no regrets. Just we're plowing forward, and we're happy to do it. So
fantastic. Well, Ken, thanks a lot for your time today.
All right. Thanks, Tyler.
That was my conversation with Ken Lavertu, and thank you and congratulations again to Ken. If you're considering buying your own business, the first step is our accelerator program. The accelerator was designed to help people find and close a business in half the time at half the cost as it would take them to do it on their own. If you're interested in signing up for the accelerator program or just learning a little bit more, simply fill out the form on this page, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much for your time.